Trying to call, I've been on my own for long enough. Maybe you can show me how to love. Maybe I'm going through withdrawals. You don't even have to do too much. You can turn me on with just a touch. Maybe I look around and since city's cold and empty, no one's around to judge me. Can see clearly when you're gone. And I said, oh, I'm blinded by the lights. Oh, I can sleep until I feel your touch. And ooh, I'm drowning in the night. And when I'm like this, you're the one I trust.
Okay, so today I'm talking to Arkheim Ra, who has some amazing information about the occult side of the music industry that covers Montauk, which we also talked about with John Whitberg in another show, and beyond Montauk, other things that he has to say. Okay, so what do we have to start with?
The songs, the Montauk songs.
Yep.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of them. I think it'd almost be impossible to really go through every single one.
Sure.
Some of them, and I think, you've covered this with John Whitberg. Some of them might have like come from like an emotional place and we wrote them from an honest place in our heart. And then of course they took advantage of that to make a lot of money. But some of them are also like specifically designed for mind control. For instance, Do the Hustle. I was like, it's literally like people needed to work. It was like to make people work. Like that song makes people work. It's silly, but it's true. And but yeah, it's just like stuff like that. And most of it's sexual programming. Sexual, you know how they say sex sells? Like that's like a phrase that people say.
Mm-hmm.
It's real true, you know what I mean? And that's part of the reason why they put sexual energy in the music and use it to sell the music. You know what I mean, and stuff like that. That's a big part of it. But yeah, the songs that I wrote were like it spans decades. One of the earlier ones would be "You Belong to Me," which was originally the Duprees and was covered by Bob Dylan and a host of other people. That song's mine. And then a more recent one would be like Instant Crush by Julian Casablancas and Daft Punk. That was a Montauk song as well. There's other more recent examples too of songs that are by me that weren't necessarily Montauk, like Blinding Lights by the Weeknd, which also a lot like this song by a band called Smash Everything Into Pieces, and the song is called Forever Alone. And you'll notice like those songs, if you listen to them, they both sound very similar. They sound a lot like each other. And there's also this thing where like I wrote You Belong to Me. I wrote I Can't Stop Falling in Love with You, Blue Moon. And you got what we got to understand about these songs is they're all C, A minor, like F, G, and maybe changed into different keys. And it's kind of like a love song chord progression. Like a lot of musicians know it as like a love song. Like it makes you feel lovey-dovey, this chord progression. And yeah, I kept using it over and over again. And I remember telling Preston Nichols, like, hey, like all my songs sound the same. Like I feel like a hack. Like these aren't even the same song. But I was like, he's like, it doesn't matter. It's the emotion, and it's going to be different people singing the songs. So it doesn't matter that they all sound the same. Nobody's going to know that it was you writing them. And so, yeah, that was like a thing. And so you actually can, with a lot of the music, really tell it was me. And like, I think a good example would be all those like 50s doo-wop love songs. Like so many of those were written by me. And then like I said, Forever Alone by Smash Everything to Pieces and Blinding Lights. I mean, they almost sound like like the same song, like practically, like they're so similar, but they're from totally different people. And I know there's also, you know, you could make the argument that just sound like each other, but I know it's because of the fact that I wrote both the songs. And you'll find that too. Like I can like hear a song that John Whitberg wrote, and I can tell that it was John Whitberg because I can just tell a song writing style and probably a psychic signature too, which gets left in the songs. Like that's part of the reason why they like to use us, is because I guess their psychic signatures are really strong. That's why they like to use us to record a lot of this music. But yeah, those are just some of the songs that are recorded at Montauk. I mean, I know there's a lot, and some of them might have just been like a part of, because there's also like the Montauk band, and Preston Nichols would have ideas for songs, and he'd kind of instruct us to write songs a certain way about certain things and put certain mind control on us. He'd kind of like instruct us a certain way to do certain things. So
Okay.
that was a big part of it, was yeah, the mind control aspect. So, but there's also just us being artists, poets, songwriters with feelings, expressing those feelings through our songs, using that as an escape from this really brutal reality that we were enduring. Yeah, and through that, there's some really powerful songwriting because we experienced a lot of intense stuff. And the reality is that's what makes a great song, is real life experiences and expressing those real life experiences through song.
Okay. Okay, can we start with like a little bit of context of what do you remember, like the period of Montauk that you remember, you know, focusing on the music industry, when, what this song creation and music creation was like? Was it like part of your job, or was it when you were off work? What was it like? Were you like dragged to a studio to maybe record, or did you go by yourself?
Every single Montauk person was forced to make music, and some people weren't good at it, so they wouldn't really call upon them again, but they would kind of force us all to play piano, stuff like that. And but I guess I was good at it for whatever reason. I think there's a really I can sense inside me that there's a really big backstory to that I don't quite understand, but as to why they like to use me for the songs. I just sense there's like a lot of information there, but it's locked up. So maybe someday in a future interview, when I remember, we can do a whole nother one. But time was really confusing for me at Montauk because we were time traveling, and I'd like one day, or I would be like in ancient Rome or something like that, and then not that much longer later, I could be like in the future or something like that.
Mhm.
So for me, like, I mean, I know what happened. Montauk happened from like 1984 to 2005 or whatever it was, which is might even be wrong. I'm not saying I have that exactly right, but yeah, I don't really like think about that. Like, I wasn't really thinking about dates and stuff like that much when I was at Montauk, especially with
Okay.
the time aspect. But from
Right.
what I've heard from other people, time went by slower in the time bubble
Yeah.
than it went outside, and through that we were able to get more stuff done and monitor the changes that we're making in time more
Hmm.
effectively, stuff like that. So was it part of my job? Yes, it was. Uh they would really force me to make music, um but it became more like a little bit of both. People, other Montauk time soldiers who weren't doing the music stuff, resented me for the fact that I was spending so much time making music.
Mm.
I remember that being a thing because, you know, they were all doing real hardcore, heavy duty stuff, and here I am like hanging out with like drum machines and recording equipment or whatever, and recording music. And one thing that was true with Montauk is all the music was recorded on reel to reel. So it wasn't recorded on computers, and quartz crystals were used, they have esoteric properties. We injected. So here's the thing: what people need to understand about music and recording music is, your body has an etheric. You put off an etheric signature, and when music is recorded, sound is recorded. That recording equipment, we don't realize it, but it's also picking up your etheric signature, which is like, you know, your psychic signal.
Yep.
So you can communicate thoughts through that psychic signal that you're not communicating directly through words in the music. So people
Hmm.
talk about subliminal messages a lot when it comes to the recording industry and the very strange things that they're doing as far as manipulating people through the music industry. But what hasn't been talked about, other than Preston Nichols talked about it, is the fact that you can put psychic messages in the music, not subliminal,
Okay.
like underneath the sound or something.
Yeah.
No, like psychic. And everyone is telepathic. Everyone is psychic. They just don't realize it. And that's why it has to do with your subconscious mind. And most people's subconscious mind isn't really present. It's like buried and in the background, right? So
Mhm.
they're not very telepathic. People who are telepathic, their subconscious mind is more upfront, they're more aware of it, they're more in tune with it, and that's what they access to be able to communicate telepathically. And that's where they put the messages. And so Preston Nichols like wrote about it in his book, The Music of Time, how Phil Spector, who was a guy that we put out a lot of songs through, he said that Phil Spector didn't believe him when he said that he was putting psychic messages in the music to make it sell better. Because Preston's like, you should be paying me more or something like that. And the guy's
Wow.
like, you know, uh, Phil Spector was like, fuck you. Like, you're just like a lackey, basically. Why should I be paying you more? I'm the genius or whatever. And he's like, no, I'm putting these messages in the songs like that are selling the albums more. It's not just because the music's good. And he's like, prove it to me then. He's like, all right, I will. And he put a phone number in the song. And they got that phone number before they put it in the song, like a independent phone number, and they put it in their studio. And he said after the song goes on the radio, that phone's gonna ring off the hook.
Wow.
And sure enough, after the song went on the radio, it rung off the hook, and all the people were like, hey, I don't know why, I just felt like they needed to call this number. And the song he put it in had nothing to do with the telephone. I think he even says the song in the book. It had nothing to do with the telephone or anything like that. It just they put the message, they overlaid that message in it. And so that's the thing that they're doing with a lot of this music is they're overlaying these messages and these feelings and stuff like that in the song. And a lot of it does, as silly as it sounds, a lot of it, because like I understand the satanic panic, like how people can perceive that, and how there's an element that's true where people freak out over stuff that's not really satanic, and they don't let people just express themselves and things like that, and they use that as an excuse. Ooh, it's satanic, right? But also, there is an aspect of things where they're actually, because it's funny. I remember like really Christian elders and stuff like that growing up. So I mean, they're Satanists, these musicians, and me thinking it was so stupid. And now I realize like as getting these memories back and everything else, like that's actually a huge part of it is there's a lot of Satanism in the music and a lot of occult rituals, and a lot of it has to do with sex, like I said.
Mhm.
But it's not always work. Sometimes it's work, but sometimes it was like free time. And like for me too, I had a room at Montauk. We all had a room, but mine, I put a bunch of like I took like, and I did this kind of without asking. I took a bunch of stuff from the recording studio and I built my own recording studio in my room.
Mhm.
And that's where I made that room is where I made um uh Instant Crush and a lot of other songs. Because I made like a lot of electronic music in there and stuff like that. I had like drum machines and stuff. And because it was like, a studio or like a mini studio, so I didn't have like a drum set in there and stuff. But like yeah, and some of the songs were really personal, and I made them kind of on my own time because it came to a point where my abilities got so powerful and things kind of got out of hand for them, and they kind of just left me the fuck alone, to be honest with you. And other people have testified to the fact that I would just hang out in my room and you would just walk by my room all the time and you just hear music blaring, and and everybody just knew to just leave me alone. Unless like they really needed me for something. And apparently like, and it's like I kind of remember this, but like it's other people remember it better than me. Apparently like they'd ask me to do stuff and I would just tell them like, no, fuck you. I got so focused on making the music, and maybe I don't know why. Maybe it was part of it was because they're afraid of me. I think because I could make the electricity freak out on the bass and make windows shatter and stuff like that. But I think part of it was also like, okay, well, he's not doing what we're telling us to do. He's making all these songs that make us a bunch of money. So like, whatever, fuck it. It's not like he's not doing something useful to us at least. But there were times where they literally be like, no, you have to fucking do this. So like they'd have to have people come in and make me do it. Like they'd have to send in people to help them. But like, yeah, it's so the answer, and I sometimes give long-winded responses, but I think people want detailed responses anyway. It's just like it's both. Sometimes it was like personal and like on my own time more or less, and like I wrote the song because I wanted to, and then other songs was like Preston or whatever, like the project for whatever reason needed a song that had some certain programming in it that they needed to put out at some certain time to make some certain thing go right. So like I said, with like, and a good example of that and is like the hustle and the because like do the hustle because at that time people were partying a lot and staying out late and calling it work. Like Americans are known for their hard work ethic, but like we were becoming like really like cushy lifestyle. Like, and I don't know, like they put this mind control music in the music to make people like, oh, even if I did party all night, I'm getting up, I'm going to work. I got this program and this song made people like work. Like I know it sounds silly, but it's something like as simple as that can be really powerful. And they put out a lot of songs like that. I wish I could remember more, but just songs that have like certain weird little programs in them to just help kind of smooth things along and help them go away the way that they want them to go. Like social engineering, literally, you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Very interesting what you said about the etheric, we would call it like etheric infusion, I guess, because this is I don't think this aspect has been discussed enough about the etheric energy that is being put out. Of course, when they do this infusion, they don't make you happy, they make you miserable, right? So or they make you they put you in a certain mode so you can put out a certain energy, right? So to infuse into
Well,
the
like
song.
I guess it depends. Like, but like for instance, like when I made like all those love songs. I mean, he knew it was like love was like really powerful between me and my trauma twin. It was this crazy psychic energy that he created on purpose.
For example, let's maybe talk about the song "You Belong to Me." Do you remember the story of it
Hmm.
and how it may be a good example of this? I mean,
Yeah. Okay. So the story of "You Belong to Me" is so a lot of people get confused because there's actually kind of two love stories for me at Montauk. Both of them ended pretty tragically, I guess. But one was my trauma twin, which that story I can tell later if it comes up. But for now, we're focusing on "You Belong to Me." That was about my wife Cassandra. Um, and the story with her is she was pretty young girl, child still, and I was like a young teenager, and you know, Joseph Powell has talked about the rape gangs that would go around
yeah,
Montauk, and she was had fallen victim to that, and it was just like the new protocol was we don't tolerate that, and we do something about it, and we catch them once, we like I can't remember exactly what it was as we like locked him in a room for 2 weeks or something like that. But anyway, like I had full permission to do something about it if I came across something like that, from what I recall. And yeah, so I did. I like did something about it. I fucked these guys up. I like grabbed this little girl and I brought her to the shower room and I helped her get clean up. And then she just kind of had this energy where she felt protected by me. And then because I had nothing and no one, and felt so isolated and stuff, uh, I let her follow me around and I just made sure nobody ever hurt her or came near to her. And it wasn't really like a romantic thing at all at first, but eventually she and I like more or less became the same age because of how the time travel programs work, right? Like I met her when she was a little girl, but then eventually we're like both like at the same like age, give or take, you know what I mean? Like a couple 100 years or whatever, right? Like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of a weird way we met. Like, yeah, she was really young. I know it's kind of messed up, but it honestly is a beautiful love story because like she did I was like a Satanist basically at this during this, like I became like a really dark person. They made me not believe in love. Like they made me believe in like worshiping the self, like self pleasure, like all like just fuck everything. Because like they can use love against you in these programs. Like the people you love, like they'll take them away from you or torture them in front of you if you don't do what they tell you. So if you just don't love anybody, they don't have anything on you, that kind of thing. So in that and not loving anyone, I felt there was safety and power.
Yeah.
And she kind of pulled me out of that illusion, right? And made me realize that there's actually a lot of power in having love. Love can make you more powerful and stronger. And because yeah, through protecting her, I don't know, it just gave me a reason to live. And then, I mean, she was very powerful. So eventually it came to the point where she didn't need my protection. We just cared about each other. You know what I mean? Like she was extremely powerful, and she's actually exists in the here and now, but she's not public and she's not just yeah. So I can't really talk about her, but um, yeah, the song "You Belong to Me" was about her because we were being sent on time missions and we weren't always with each other, and so we would see each other when we get back, and there was a fear that I had that because we would get paired and we'd be in lives where we would be with different people and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and to be with those people like romantically, right? And I have a bit of a worry that she didn't understand that no matter what, like I wanted she was my girl and like she was the one I cared about and like yeah like I not that I didn't care about these other women that they made me be with like but like she was the one that was mine and she belonged to me and don't forget that kind of thing was the message. And
Okay.
so that's why it talks about like her being going around all over the world and stuff because like yeah, because like that's what she was doing. And the silver plane, I guess she had the silver plane that her and one of her friends, I don't know, John Whitberg told me a lot of the story of the song actually. Like he remembered a lot of stuff about it. He's like, "Oh, you're referencing this and that." I was like, "Oh, really? Okay." How I got it back is I was playing the piano and I started just playing it on my own. I was like, "Wait a minute, this is," and it just like hit me like a wall of bricks. I was like, because I wrote a song like that when I was like 15 years old. Like I'd
Hmm.
never heard "You Belong to Me," and I wrote a song that sounded just like it.
Oh,
And
okay.
in my normal life, right, my normal
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Montauk life, and I started playing, and I'm like, wait, this is "You Belong to Me," and then I was like, wait a minute, and then it like all like came back to me like that, yeah, like I wrote it, and
So you remembered it basically. You
yeah, I
remembered it.
remembered it. I
Okay.
remember who I wrote it for and why. And but yeah, John Warburg was the one who remembered about the silver plane
Mm-hmm.
being like a reference to something and how she loved to fly and she had this plane with one of her friends that they fly in and stuff or something like that. And yeah, like that song, yeah, it just was like my ode to her and just the fact that even if we're gonna live all these different lives, that we're still together. What's my cat doing? Are you drinking sink water, China? What are you doing? Okay,
So
sorry.
so this song apparently was sent back in time because it's officially released in 1952, I think. Yes, by the Duprees.
The Duprees is yeah, well the first people to sing it, and then Bob Dylan. There's that song. There's a movie, and he did the soundtrack, or
Mm-hmm.
like when he was part of the soundtrack, he covered the song.
Okay.
But so that's where I found it. But the Duprees were the first people to do it, and yeah, it did get sent back in time. Yeah, yeah, it did.
All right. So another song, a very iconic song, and maybe one of the biggest songs of the last century is "My Heart Will Go On" by Celine, sung by Celine Dion. But
Yeah, that song is about being separated from my trauma twin
mhm,
and how I would dream about them all the time. I actually wrote quite a few songs about that. Um, there's a few of them were songs that I could reference that were written by me where I talk about like this person appearing in my dreams and this woman appearing in my
mhm,
dreams stuff. And it's a theme when they separate you because John has a few songs too, John Whitberg, where he's talking about the same thing, dreaming of this person. And sometimes they'll wipe your memory of them, make you forget them,
Yeah.
like make you forget the person entirely, but then you're dreaming of them all the time. So,
Hmm.
and you know that they're capable of wiping your memory, so you know what happened. So it was kind of like that. And I was dreaming of her all the time, and I knew what happened. I remember her, like they weren't able to make me totally forget her. And that song was just about, yeah, like near, far, wherever you are, my heart will go on. And like, just it was just basically saying that no matter what, I'll love her, and I know that her love like meant something, I guess. That was what that song meant. And yeah, it makes me sad and mad and angry because I look into these songs, of course, when I find a song that I wrote and I find the story about it, I find evidence, I really do, for me anyway, like it's evidence. Like the guy, like apparently it was just like, I wish I had names written down right now. I'm sorry I don't, but um the guy who directed the Titanic was just like, hey, I need a song for this movie. He went to this guy, and apparently the story is he just crapped out that song for this movie. He didn't have any heartbreak happen to him. There's no story behind it. He's just like, oh, Titanic. Like that really makes me mad. Because you can feel, and that's the reason why they do that a lot of the times when they come out when these Illuminati pricks come out with a movie that they want to sell really well, they'll use like a Montauk song because they know that the emotion of it just sucks people in. Like when you
Hmm.
hear that song, you're like, oh God. Well, because you can feel like the love behind it and the heartbreak and like the oh my God, oh Lord, and then it makes you want to watch the movie to feel that and understand that feeling. It pulls you in instantly and makes you want to watch the movie. And they've been doing that since like film started and songs could be in films. Well, they'll take our songs and a lot of our songs. That's the first time they came out and were ever played were for a film.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that song was really big, and it still is very famous and popular in
When I hear my
Asia.
songs everywhere I go, it's some of the it's a very, very peculiar feeling.
Yeah, and in Asia it was crazy. People were like going crazy about this song. It was playing everywhere.
In
Uh,
Asia?
in Asia, yeah, sure. China, Japan, they were just crazy about it.
God.
And despite the song being like kind of a sad song, people still like wanted that feeling. So yeah.
I wrote so many songs about my trauma twin, and it's just so sad when I look back at it because it was like they would manipulate me and break my heart and do all this messed up stuff to me just to get me to write songs, man. It's messed up if you think about it.
So how would that be? I mean, you have a trauma,
Well,
and
think about it,
then
like
they would
that's
drag
how
you
you
into
get.
a studio or something?
Well, no, like if you, they just knew like if I would if situations happen with me and my trauma twin, I would write
Hmm.
songs about it. When
Okay.
I introduced to her and I was in love, I was writing all these love songs, and then after that emotion gets exhausted and you can't really work with that anymore. Okay, you need something new, like okay, like and they let us have a child for a while, and I wrote songs about being in love and having a child. And then they took our child away from us, and I wrote songs about that. And then they gave our child back to us, and then I wrote songs about that. And then they took her and my child away from me, and I wrote songs about that. They just did all these scenarios where they took stuff away from me and give it back. And I have feelings about it, and I
Wow.
wouldn't know, and a lot of sometimes too, like with Montauk, like that you wouldn't know what's going on. It didn't tell you very much. Like you could have been on a team with 5 people, right? You work with these 5 other people, and you see them for your time missions. You live in towns together, and you do stuff or whatever it is you do. Maybe sometimes it's quicker, and it's not a whole lifetime, but you work together and you get really close to them. And then one day you show up, they get briefed on what you're going to do next, and it's like 2 of the people that were on the team with you, they're just not there, and it's 2 other people. No explanation. You're not allowed to ask. Like, you don't know when you're gonna see them again. Like, they did that kind of stuff all the time. Like
Mm.
I said, you're not allowed to ask. You're not allowed to like get mad. You're not allowed to say anything. Like, because they did it to try to not let you form emotional bonds with each other. So
Yeah.
that way they keep you more controlled and more manipulated. But they did want you to have an emotional bond with your trauma twin because they could reward you by being with them. They could reward you by not like sending you on like vacations, lifetimes vacations together and stuff like that. That's the thing they do. Um, in different programs, they'll reward you with lifetimes, like sometimes just 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, but they'll reward you with like letting you be together in some nice place for a certain amount of time.
Wow.
Like, and then they'll take that away from you too. And yeah, of course, they'll siphon as much emotional energy as that out of that as they can in the form of songs, and take that powerful psychic energy and turn it into currency. You know what I mean? It's really a lot of it. A lot of it has to do with mind control, but the reason why they can really just take any old song from us as long as it's good is because it's currency, right? It's money. It's a way to make money.
Hmm. So every time you record a song, they had these quartz crystal uh, devices or recording devices that would also record your emotional energy there. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not a like Preston was the big like engineer, understood all that aspect of things. He's the one who can explain it. Like I really can't explain it, but I do know that like old radios they use quartz crystals, like the old recording consoles and stuff like that I think use the quartz crystals too, and he insisted on using reel to reels. And I liked using the reel to reel recorders too, because you can put the like it captures the psychic energy and stuff like that better.
Wow.
Do know
Um,
that there's
because
I
it's
do know that,
magnetic. Because it's magnetic.
yeah, because it's magnetic, yeah. But I do know that there's like ways to do that digitally as well. And there's these advanced like kind of supercomputers that they have where you can hook up to them telepathically and record music through that, which I've used.
Hmm.
But Montauk was not really using that, I don't think. That might have come later, but I don't have any memories of that. I remember it being pretty rudimentary. In fact, I'm just still to this day don't work with computers well. Like if it was one of the ones where you hook up with your brain, that'd be a different story. But like, yeah, I still to this day prefer to record analog. If I had a reel to reel, I would record with it. They take up a lot of room and they're expensive, but I would record with that even in the here and now if I could because I'm just used to it, you know?
Okay. So when these recordings are copied, then this energy passes on. It doesn't.
Oh yeah, and then
Okay.
also another thing too is with their songs, like with a song, like it carries a psychic signature,
Mhm.
right? And someone can cover a song, play a song, right?
Yeah.
And like a different artist sing it, so they
Hmm.
have a total voice, and maybe do it in a little bit different of a style. But if they're any good at what they do, the same psychic signature will shine through.
Wow.
It can pass through not only just like copying tapes and stuff
Right.
and CDs or whatever, but like through people, through individuals. Like songs carry, they're kind of really like a magical thing. So
Hmm.
it's not weird at all to think that like this weird esoteric occult satanic time travel project would be like really into music, right? Like because it's
Yeah.
such a magic with a K kind of thing, you know?
Interesting. Yeah. So it's true magic, and they know the secret of it and the mechanism of it, and they use it fully. All
Yeah, and
right.
another thing that they use too, which I have been kind of trying to blow the whistle on, is they'll have sexual rituals going on during the recordings, and they'll
Mhm.
be injecting that sexual energy into the recordings. So like orgies and things like that. And a lot of times too, like a big thing that they like to do is they'll have a woman, usually a woman, being you can use your imagination here. And at the point of climax, I think
Okay.
it's okay to say that, right?
Sure.
Um, they cut their heads off or kill them somehow.
Okay.
That the energy is like severely put into the music that way.
Hmm.
And that's
Of
that
death, right?
I know Montauk did a bit or a lot. But yeah, Ordo Templum Nephilim, which is like the Swedish cult that is hugely connected to music. They're really a big player in that right now as well. But yeah, we're focusing on Montauk for now, so we'll talk about that
Hmm.
later.
Yep. All right. So at Montauk, they also tried this procedure, right, where they would
Oh, they didn't just try it; they did
no,
it.
I mean they would do this as a practice. They would sacrifice someone, or they would do a sex ritual
Yeah, yeah, and then of course
while
during
rec-
and
while
stuff. So
recording the song.
yeah, like usually the vocals, and yeah, you and it's just gonna sound crazy, but a thing they can do, well, not really. If you're watching this interview, your mind's open enough to really understand it. A thing
Sure.
they can do is they can have a clone of you, like let's say it's that a woman, right? They did
Hmm.
this to Britney Spears a lot with Ordo Templum Nephilim.
To whom?
Britney Spears
Oh,
with
Britney
Ordo
Spears.
Templum Nephilim. Not
Okay.
Montauk, but Ordo Templum Nephilim. But
Right.
yeah, she'd be singing, recording in the studio, but a clone of her is having this weird sex ritual going on her,
Oh,
and
okay.
she recording in the studio doesn't even know that that's going on. No
Uh-huh.
clue. Wild. And
Wow.
that's a part of their power too, like is the fact that she doesn't even know, right?
But there is a
Like,
part of her energy in the clone, of course, right?
yes, and like, it's putting that sexual energy in hers in the music. And
Hmm.
yeah, there was like a surface level of it where she was a 16-year-old girl and they're doing the whole sex sells thing with her.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So there's that. That was pretty apparent, but it goes deeper and is a bit more sinister than even people were, aware of on a surface level.
Okay. You mentioned Phil Spector. Do you remember other producers and musicians being in Montauk and, openly communicating with them?
Yeah, one of the big ones was George the Shadow Morton.
Hmm.
He was a part of getting these songs out there. Um, and then I wasn't really seen much by these people. I'm a big mystery to them. They wonder
Okay.
who I am. I'm like I don't mean to sound like this is gonna probably be one of the most narcissistic things I'm ever gonna say in my life, but it's just true. I'm like a god to them. Like for real. Like they like wonder like who the fuck I am. Like so like I'm more like a hidden secret than like the guy who's like going out and like talking to these people. But I do know that George the Shadow Morton was at Montauk and
Hmm.
actually went to the base and actually saw the recording studio and stuff like that.
Okay.
And Preston Nichols uh, had a connection with Phil Spector,
Hmm.
and I can only imagine that he had seen the recording studio at Montauk. But some of these songs were recorded by Phil Spector at his recording studio with studio musicians, stuff like that.
Hmm.
He he like he could you can remake these like I said you can cover them and the static energy would
Yep.
be the same. They would do that all the time. He
Okay.
had the Wrecking Crew, right? Phil Spector, so he could just hire all these people, have them come in, give the songs to different people. He famously bragged about how he could take anybody off the street and turn him into a superstar. Didn't matter who it was. So he just kind of had like a factory
Hmm.
manufacturing kind of setup to make music with the Wrecking Crew, and a lot of those are Montauk songs, but they re-recorded them um, there so that way that well, there needed to be a story, there needed to be a documentation. You know what I mean? Like there needed to be record that this was
Yeah.
happening. There's cameras that exist during the time and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
some of the that's interesting. I've looked into it. Ellie Golding, I think is her name is.
But
Ellie
the
Greenwich. Ellie Greenwich. She did do da do ron ron be my baby maybe I know then which do be my baby's mine
okay.
do diddy diddy. There's two individuals, Jeff Barry and Ellie Greenwich,
Hmm.
and they both are married and they work with Phil Spector and they work with George the Shadow Morton and stuff like that. And they're credited for some of my songs and other people's Montauk songs as well, not just my songs, but other Montauk songwriters.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so they've been interviewed separately about like Ellie Greenwich has been interviewed about her music history and there's basically different people have been interviewed about working on these songs, and they have literally told. I've done the research. Like Elliot Greenwich will say the song was recorded in New York, and then Jeff Barry will say that it was recorded in L.A. And it's like I understand that they were doing a lot of drugs in the '60s, and the memory might not be that great. But to think you recorded a song in New York City when you recorded it in LA or vice versa, like where did you record it? And then there's one where uh, um, it's disputed whether the guy who does Hey Mr. Piano Man. What's that guy's name again? They can't agree on whether he was there or not, and whether he was the one who
Ah,
recorded the piano
Billy
on the song, like
Billy
argue.
Joel.
Yeah, Billy Joel.
Okay.
Like on one of the songs, they're like she says that he was there, then he says he wasn't. It's like, okay, what's up with all these weird, just like they're not telling the same stories. Whereas Phil Spector, like I said, he was very documented a lot of what he was doing. But like people were actually in the recording studio with them and stuff like that. And there's documentaries that you get an insider perspective on what he was doing. So yeah, so there's an aspect of that where they could re-record the songs to put them out in the public, and also they would do that where they'd give them to a band, and they'd give it to a band where they're all proficient musicians,
Mm.
you know what I mean, and they'd have them record the songs and stuff like that. So that's one thing that they'd do. But sometimes they would literally use the recordings from Long Island, from Montauk, and then they would just give them to whoever, and it
Mhm.
didn't matter. And just give it, just literally pick some random people that fit a certain image, put the right clothes on, make their hair the right way or whatever, and just send them out there and have them sing the songs. And it would not even be the same people on the recordings, and it didn't matter as long as they sounded close enough like them. It didn't matter.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah, and you'll
interesting.
find there's lots of evidence like that. A lot of these bands were manufactured, and that it wasn't the
Yeah,
same people recordings.
when you talked about the fact that Phil Spector said that I can make anyone a celebrity, a star. It kind
Yeah,
of reminded me of the 90s slash 2000s when they were making, hatching out those boys bands like endlessly, like, NSYNC,
yeah.
which I know you have a connection with,
Mhm.
Backstreet Boys, and there were like many, 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 many others that weren't as successful, but they were there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Backstreet Boys song "Larger Than Life" is it a Montauk song or not?
Yeah, it's about giving you, it's about idol worship. Yeah, that makes you larger than life is about idol worship, and it's about like it's about how like can't you see,
Hmm.
making our reality, meaning we're all making us all this money, making us rich and famous,
Hmm.
like, and that makes you larger than life, they're saying, like, so yeah, it's a mind control song. Yeah, 100%. And I think I did write that song, I'm pretty sure,
Okay.
because I wrote some of the other songs.
I
Not all
rem
of them though.
I
All their
remember
songs.
how big this song was. It's like I think it was 99 and or 2000
Yeah,
something
it was
like that.
weird is when I was a little kid, I had the CDs,
Yeah.
those CDs, and I listened to them over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny, like I had this uncle who was like a musician who like, like came in, he's like, "Oh, you need to start listening to better music." And I'm like, whatever. Looking back, it's like, dude, like if you only knew, like I made this music, bro. I'm a time traveler. Like,
Wow.
yeah, it's really weird, but yeah.
Did you remember it then, or did you remember it
Nope, I had
later?
no clue.
Okay, okay.
I
Yeah.
had no clue what was going on. Yeah, I was a
And
little kid.
the another interesting aspect of those are the music videos, what they put in the music videos.
Oh yeah, they show it, and like like no strings attached within sync. Like they're showing these
Yeah.
are puppets. They're mind controlled.
Yeah.
We'll do whatever we tell them to do. Like yeah, like it's just so obvious. And I hate to say it, but I was satanic at a certain point, and I
Okay.
know that I was Satanism in the music. One thing that I literally remembered today, so don't ask me for details on it, but I'm guessing I wrote some other songs. I've never listened to them, but I remember I had the band Ghost. They're
Yeah.
like a metal band, but they're really just a modern rock band.
Hmm.
But I had a poster of that band in my room. I remember that, my Montauk room. I had a poster of the guy and his face, like it's like in the
Hmm.
band. And yeah, a lot of my music I put, it was satanic. There's satanic weird stuff in the songs. And the band Ghost is the most openly satanic band you'll ever come across ever.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. I remember you mentioned Glenn Miller being connected to Montauk somehow. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, of course, because like the song that it's a credit to him, which is a song by John Whitberg is
Oh.
which one? What is the one? It's At Last he's credited for.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. At
Yeah,
last.
John wrote that song. Okay, so it's one of those Gordon and Harry Warden for the musical film Sun Valley Serenade. So Glenn Miller and his orchestra
Uh-huh.
recorded.
Yes.
Okay.
Valley of Serenade, right? The famous
Yeah,
movie,
and like I
right?
said, they
Yeah.
for a movie. It was for a movie. Like
Yeah.
I said, use their songs for movies. There's
Okay.
exactly yeah. So I would like to talk about JetBlue.
Okay. What's that?
Yeah. JetBlue is a band that came out of Detroit in the 1970s in an alternate reality.
Hmm.
And that's where a lot of famous songs come from.
Oh.
They were like the American Beatles, and for those who aren't familiar, Detroit is Motown. So that's where like a
Hmm.
lot of like soul music was coming from out of the United States. But these were for white boys and what you would call more like of a garage band, right? But they had that Motown influence in their music, which made it very special and gave them this perfect like America, just like a sound that in a way almost defined America. And some of the songs that were and it's weird. And here's another thing, Lois. I remember songs from this reality. They played them, so it's like the chicken and the egg because they were a huge band. So some of the songs that they were given are probably from this reality. That's what I'm realizing. It's like what came first? Who stole what songs? You know what I mean? Like who really wrote the songs? So that's one thing I want to point out. But I remember like JetBlue, they did Only a Shadow, which now on this reality, this guy Cleaners from Venus is what the band is called. Which yeah. Only a Shadow by Cleaners from Venus was their song. And it was a big song. In this reality, it wasn't really a big song, but in that reality, Only a Shadow was a fairly big tune. And then American Woman. I
Mm.
remember I remember that JetBlue did American Woman. They did the song that Aerosmith does that their biggest song. I don't know what it's called, like Sing for the Years, Sing for the
Oh, okay.
Laughter,
Yeah,
Years. They did that
yeah.
song,
Dream On. Yeah.
Dream On. And
Yeah.
then I find it weird because Aerosmith, it's like an airplane, Aerosmith.
Yeah.
Yeah, JetBlue was just like a huge band. And oh yeah, back in the USSR, that was
Oh,
JetBlue. I
wow.
know they played that song. So like I said, it's confusing. Did the Beatles write it or did JetBlue write it?
Okay. So
Like
can you say how you found out about them? Did you go to that reality? Did you live there? What was
I
going on?
lived there
Uh-huh.
and I lived the life there. Like so what's weird is like I had versions of me living this normal cover life in other realities too, and the memories will bleed through and I'll remember them. But I
Okay.
also remember just from the Montauk Project and the fact that there was like a and B reality. They show it in Stranger Things. Or
Mm.
no, not Stranger Things, excuse me, Fringe. The show
Okay.
Fringe. And in this alternate reality, they had airships more.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one you're
And
talking about. Yes. Okay.
yeah, and it's not that there weren't airplanes, too. That's another thing. There are airplanes in that reality. It's just, airships were more common and used a lot.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, JetBlue there, I remember like they had an album cover where it's them and they look like totally 70s, like I think a couple of them got like the big fros and they got the long hair and stuff.
Uh-huh.
We're in 70s like clothes, and they're in front of an airplane, like a jetliner, and it says JetBlue and like the psychedelic like you can almost imagine in your head like Rubber Soul, like that album cover, but it was like
Uh-huh.
JetBlue in front of an airplane. It was like a similar thing. And yeah, they play a lot of the Beatles songs, and then JetBlue plays a lot of the Beatles songs, and the Beatles plays a lot of the JetBlue songs, which makes me wonder, like I said, who wrote what, who
Right.
stole. Really confusing. Um,
Or
but
maybe
yeah,
as you said to me before that the same songs kind of, they trickle to through, parallel realities and people
yeah,
just
yeah,
pick up
yeah.
on
'Cause
them.
yeah, and MGMT even shows that in the music video for which I showed you, which is
Yeah.
one of my songs, Me and Michael. They show you they have this phone, and in the original band from the Philippines who wrote that band, or they say wrote that song, they're the first
Uh-huh.
people who heard it. They show the same thing. They have this weird phone that's got like flesh on it, and they're looking at the song in like another reality. And
Oh
in the
my God.
beginning of EMT songs, it literally shows you three different versions of the songs, and they're looking at the song in all these different realities. So yeah, like that's like a thing. Like a lot of these songs are like so crazy because they transcend time space in such a way where like different people are playing them in different realities in different ways like like Today is the Greatest Day Ever by the Smashing Pumpkins was made out with drum machines and synthesizers.
Mhm.
Like that song was written. Like, but this version we hear now, it's a fucking grunge band played it. Like, and it's hard to imagine it as an electronic song. Like, but like, yeah, that you can do that. You can do all these different things with these songs and put them throughout time and space and play with them. And I think songs are like alive in a way. Like some songs are written in different times by different places by different people and different times in different places by different people, and it's like they just are supposed to exist. Certain songs,
Mhm.
like it's supposed to happen, and they might be a little bit different in one reality from another or whatever, but they happen either way, no matter what. And yeah, music is a really magical, hard to put a finger on and explain kind of thing. You know, it really is. There's so much going on with music that's so much larger than life. No, not to
Okay.
use a pun here, but no pun intended.